Hello, this is Heather McNamee with a recording for the NI Developer Conference 2020, and my talk is the product of Theseus. I work for Open Strategy Partners in client operations and content strategy, and you're very welcome to contact me on Twitter or through my email here. Open Strategy Partners is a consultancy focused on strategy, marketing, and communications for technology organizations with a special focus on open source. We help our customers communicate the value of their products, connect with people who need to hear their stories, and grow the communities around them. In this presentation today, I'm going to talk about product marketing and the tools that we use at Open Strategy Partners. And the question for me is, how do you express the value of your product in a way that's grounded in evidence to help users be successful? And it's that first question there that I've been answering throughout my career. My software experience was first in support, then I moved to training, then I moved to marketing. The question is really always the same. How can I help users be successful with your product? And I'm always quite enthusiastic. I'm like, okay, I just need some info first. I can't, if it's a course, I can't make a course for just anyone. I need to know who is it, what do they do with it, and why. And once you show me that cool stuff they're doing, I can show other people. And really it's the same no matter what type of asset you're creating. And of course they're like, well, isn't that your job? And of course, by the time we're coming in, there isn't usually anything that we can refer to answer all those questions. It's really what we do. So cool. We get to work. Before I go forward, I just wanted to say I have a mental model of a product feature. I don't work directly in product management. I deal with the consequences of it. So this might be inaccurate, but this is my current concept of what product features are. I understand they have capabilities, they change states, they react to contexts, and when they provide positive outcomes for users, they're happy little features. So in order for me to find out this question of who's using it, how, and why, I have to look. Sometimes it's in documentation, sometimes it's in the code, sometimes it's on the website, and it's maybe like a feature list, right? But that's all very good at telling me what it does, but it's still unclear for whom and why. And sometimes it's in people's heads, and sometimes it's a slowly evolving conversation on Slack or on Twitter, and sometimes it's in like really old, dusty process documentation. So I think it's helpful to think of this parable of the blind stakeholders and the elephant. You may have heard this one. The story goes that 5 blind stakeholders were asked what the version 1.0 of the elephant was really like, and each told a different story from their perspective. And for me, this is what this kind of fractured or faceted image is of a product. I might observe and interview users or look at the product, interview salespeople and the product team, and they all have a different perspective. And sometimes it gets a little strange. When I hear stakeholders completely disagreeing about fundamental aspects of the product, it feels a little strange. I mean, who's in control? Who's deciding what goes in the product and where it's going? I thought they all had it figured out. And I've seen some really scary things. Maybe product owners who don't know how people use their product. Slow feature adoption. I've obviously supported products where users were expecting things because it was sold to them and it doesn't actually exist. So I even created training for a product where there was an entire UI that was added for just one customer who had a lot of money. And even the product manager was exasperated. Few people really understood the purpose, and it was just confusing everybody else. So that brings us to, this old Zen koan you've probably heard as well, that if there's a feature but no one uses it, does it even exist? I felt like the closer I was getting into the product itself, I was really wondering what even is a product? So this is where the thought experiment, I think, comes in handy. The ship of Theseus, as the story goes, was trotted out every year to commemorate Theseus's successful return from adventuring around mythological Greece, doing things like killing the Minotaur. And they would bring out his boat and parade it around. And of course, it's understandable, they had to keep up repairs, boat's got to float. So they slowly replaced parts of the boat, a new oar, a new mainsail, just normal maintenance stuff. But over centuries, the entire boat was replaced, so nothing left of the original. And as the thought experiment goes, is this still the ship of Theseus? I think to understand it in a way that will help us to think about products, we can extend this metaphor even further. Really, what is a boat? Is a raft a boat? I mean, it can definitely displace water, so that's good. But the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is floating, and that's definitely not a boat. We can't propel it, and we can't move it directionally, so that's definitely not a boat. In order to make it a boat, we need some method of propulsion and some way to control the direction. And depending on what we add, at least at the very, very, very bare minimum, we can make sure it can propel and we can get it to go where we want it to. But after that, there's simply so many possibilities. The affordances of the properties of your product make it usable and useful. So whether you need a speedy boat for a day sail or to go across the Atlantic, or maybe a big COVID cruiser, the capabilities will make all these possibilities. And what does this say about products? Is a product simply a collection of continuously changing features? What's at the core driving the product forward? So what I think is it works really well, at the micro level with user stories. Surely someone made a decision at some point. Does this feature belong in the product? Who is it for? What are they doing with it, and why? And that will answer, does that actually answer the underlying drive and purpose? The product is more, though, than just a collection of all these features. And so back to the thought experiment, Theseus is no longer sailing. If they gave the boat to someone else so it could still adventure, it would no longer be his ship. It would be like Alice's ship. They want to celebrate Theseus. So to me, this is still the ship of Theseus. So it is seaworthy, and it's being kept seaworthy. And so before it was going off on these great adventures, now it simply needs to potter around the harbor and get dressed up once a year. So it's still the ship, but I mean, if we're talking about products here, that's a really successful pivot, right? I think that's a pretty good example. And what I'd love to know, of course, I don't have a chance to talk with you. I'd love to hear how you make the decisions about your product direction and then how you express this to stakeholders, decision makers, and users. What I'm going to show you now is what we do at OSP. When I started working with my colleagues, I was delighted because they understood my pain. In fact, I'd worked with Jam years ago in the land of support, and we met back up. You'd met Tracy, and they'd come up with something pretty cool. The value map is really this living documentation and an inventory of all of those features in a way that expresses benefits, and they're expressed as basically value statements. The value map helps to build consensus in the organization, and it becomes a single source of truth. So this agreed upon language can describe and talk about the product consistently across your sales assets, across marketing, and of course it needs to be kept up to date. We'll look now at the anatomy of a value statement. At the lowest level here, you can see the feature, which is an atomic unit of functionality, and it sort of answers the what a product does. The activity is, like maybe it's something someone's trying to do. The benefit then is the positive outcome, and that all forms your value statement. Those then at the next level up are used to form a positioning statement, and that's really the sum of those value statements. And look at this example of some evidence from the qualitative survey of users of Sulu, and we looked at the developer persona. The sample had a majority of near 80% of team leads and senior developers, and so we asked them to tell us what encouraged you to try it, why did you switch, what did you find useful, and we started to look for patterns. Most mentioned Symfony integration, the innovative backend, and easy extensibility. And I should say the user picture here is just one piece of the puzzle. We also look at the competitors, and we can sometimes discover gaps that way and opportunities. Our workshops bring together subject matter experts, business design roles, customers, and we're creating this picture together. And we'll give you an example here of a value statement. At the lowest level, we're talking about the feature we're talking about is this modern admin UI. Again, that's using the words that users gave us. What our developer persona is trying to do is build their app with Sulu, and the outcome they want is that their content editors have a good user experience. So the statement there is, Sulu's innovative, beautiful backend provides a modern admin UI to simplify your app's user experience. In this next example, we can see custom entities is the feature when developers are trying to integrate it with their Symfony applications. They would like seamless integration, and the statement we come up with is the flexibility to extend your own custom entities and business logic to seamlessly integrate with Symfony applications. So what I like about these is that these statements are backed by evidence. It's a real thing the product does, it has outcomes that people want, and there's really no way to hide vaporware here. It simply is a true statement of what the product does. And here's an example of how we would use this in content strategy. We're creating these Sulu guides, and they're going to help a decision-making unit have a conversation about what Sulu can do. We know in a decision-making unit, this mixed audience includes people with different backgrounds who all play different roles, and they have different needs. But this content includes a kind of a visual guide, but also blog posts geared towards a specific persona, and connecting to other evidence, like looking under the hood of a case study. And the nice thing is that this gives us the opportunity to find out what makes the happiest users successful, and then share that knowledge. You really don't have to be a developer to get anything out of this, but it can speak to multiple audiences as well. And what I really like about it is that, it's grounded in evidence. It's, like I said, that real user experience, real features that exist, real outcomes that matter. And the value map adds clarity to that picture that you're creating. And it builds trust, and it empathizes with the users. And all together, we call this authentic communication at OSP. So, marketing's got a bad rap, and I think for a lot of reasons actually, but we're trying to create a kind of product marketing that is really helping people. So if you have any questions about this, you can contact us at hello@openstrategypartners.com. I would love to hear from you as well. And I want to say a final thank you to the organizing team. I'm really sorry that we can't all be there together in person. I really do miss that chance. So please ping me on Twitter if you have anything to say about this presentation. And yes, I did draw the slides, and you can read this blog post to find out why you should draw yours too. Okay, bye.